My mother-in-law sabotaged my son's future. My mother-in-law destroyed my gifted son's chances at his dream school by secretly sabotaging his applications. When I discovered what she did, it tore our family apart. My name is Sarah, and I'm 32F. I need advice because I just found out something that has shaken me to my core. I have been married to my husband, Mike, 34M, for 9 years. We have one son, Alex, who is 10M. Alex has always been exceptional. He started reading at age 3, was doing multiplication at 4, and by age 7, he was reading at a high school level. We've had him tested multiple times, and he consistently scores in the 99th percentile for his age group. The local public school couldn't meet his needs, so we've been working toward getting him into Riverside Academy, an elite private school for gifted children. It's incredibly competitive. Only 50 kids get accepted each year out of thousands of applicants. We've been preparing for this for 2 years. Alex has been taking extra classes, doing community service, and working with tutors. The application process started last September, and it's been our whole focus. My mother-in-law, Patricia, 58F, has always been supportive of Alex. She bragged about him constantly and seemed proud to have such a smart grandson. She helped with school projects and even paid for some of his tutoring sessions. But I started noticing strange things happening around December. Alex missed 2 important tutoring sessions because Patricia said she would drive him but then claimed she forgot. She said she had written it down wrong in her calendar. Then in January, Alex didn't receive a letter about a scholarship opportunity that his tutor said was mailed to our house. Patricia picks up our mail sometimes when we're at work, and she said she never saw any letter from the school district. I thought these were just coincidences until last week when something happened that made me suspicious. Alex was supposed to take a practice test at the library that Patricia had offered to drive him to. When I came home early from work, I found Alex at home playing video games instead. When I asked why he wasn't at his test, he said Grandma Patricia had called him and said the test was canceled. But when I called the library, they said no one had canceled and they had been waiting for Alex to show up. That night I confronted Patricia about it. She got defensive and said there must have been some confusion. She claimed she had gotten a call from someone saying the test was canceled and she was just trying to save us a trip, but her story didn't make sense. Why would someone call her instead of us? And why didn't she check with us first before telling Alex not to go? I decided to do some investigating. I started going through all the paperwork and communications we'd received about Alex's application process. That's when I discovered something that made my blood run cold. 3 important documents that should have been in Alex's file were missing: his teacher recommendation letter, his portfolio of advanced work, and his community service verification form. Without these, his application would be automatically rejected. I called his teacher, Mrs. Chen, who confirmed she had written the letter and given it to Patricia when she offered to help us organize Alex's application materials. Patricia had volunteered to collect everything and make copies for our records. Mrs. Chen still had a copy of her letter, and when she read it to me over the phone, I understood why it had disappeared. She had written about Alex's extraordinary abilities and potential, calling him one of the most gifted students she had ever taught. I checked with the community center where Alex volunteers. They confirmed they had given Patricia the signed verification form 6 weeks ago when she came to pick it up for us. That evening, I searched through Patricia's car while she was inside having dinner with us. In her trunk, I found a folder with Alex's name on it. Inside were all the missing documents, plus several letters from Riverside Academy that we had never seen. The letters showed that Alex's application had been flagged as incomplete due to missing materials. The school had sent multiple notices asking for the missing documents. The final letter was dated just 3 days ago. It stated that Alex's application had been withdrawn due to incomplete submission and that he could reapply next year. When I confronted Patricia with the evidence, she broke down and confessed everything. She admitted that she had been deliberately sabotaging Alex's application because she was jealous. Her other grandson, Jake, who is Mike's brother Tom's son, is the same age as Alex but struggles academically. Patricia said it wasn't fair that Alex got all the attention and opportunities while Jake was overlooked. She thought that if Alex didn't get into Riverside Academy, he would attend regular public school with Jake, and they could be equals. She believed this would be better for Jake's self-esteem and for family harmony. Patricia begged me not to tell Mike what she had done. She promised she would try to fix things and said she would pay for whatever it took to make this right. But the application deadline had passed weeks ago, and there was nothing that could be done for this year. I was devastated. Alex had worked so hard for this opportunity. We had spent thousands of dollars on tutoring and preparation. Most importantly, Alex had been counting on starting at Riverside Academy in the fall. When Mike came home that night, I showed him everything I had found. His reaction surprised me. Instead of being angry at his mother, he seemed more upset with me for going through her car and papers. He said what Patricia did was wrong, but that she was probably just confused and trying to help in her own way. He suggested that maybe it was for the best because Riverside Academy might put too much pressure on Alex anyway. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mike was making excuses for his mother's deliberate sabotage of our son's future. When I tried to explain how calculated and intentional Patricia's actions had been, he said I was being dramatic. The next day, Mike talked to his mother privately. When he came back, he said Patricia was very sorry and that she had just made some mistakes. He said Patricia genuinely believed she was trying to help, and maybe we could find some middle ground where we listened to her ideas without changing Alex's treatment. But I knew the truth. I had seen the evidence. Patricia had systematically destroyed Alex's chances at his dream school because she was jealous. Since then, Patricia Patricia has been trying to act like nothing happened. She brought Alex a new video game and has been extra sweet to him. But I can't forget what she did to my son. Mike thinks I should forgive his mother and move on. He says family is more important than any school and that Alex will be fine wherever he goes. But I feel like Patricia stole something precious from Alex that we can never get back. Alex doesn't know what really happened. He thinks his application wasn't good enough and that's why he didn't get in. I've been watching him become more withdrawn and less confident in his abilities. I don't know what to do anymore. Should I tell Alex the truth about what his grandmother did? Should I cut contact with Patricia despite Mike's objections? Am I wrong to be this angry about something that can't be changed? I just feel so betrayed and heartbroken for my son. How could someone who claimed to love Alex deliberately destroy his opportunities out of jealousy? Update 1. I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post. The support meant everything during such a difficult time. Unfortunately, things have gotten much worse since I last wrote. After my post, Mike and I had several long conversations about boundaries with Patricia. I thought we had reached an understanding. Mike agreed that Patricia needed to apologize properly and that we would monitor any future interactions with Alex. For about a week, things were quiet. Then Patricia called and said she wanted to take us all out to dinner to clear the air. She suggested we meet at Alex's favorite restaurant where he could order whatever he wanted. Mike thought this was a good sign that she was ready to make things right. We agreed to meet at Luigi's, an Italian place Alex loves. When we arrived, Patricia was already there with a wrapped gift bag on the table. She said she had brought something special for Alex to show there were no hard feelings. The gift was a new tablet loaded with educational games and apps. She explained that she had researched the best learning tools for gifted children. I looked at Mike hoping he would be cautious, but he seemed pleased that his mother was making an effort. I told Patricia that we appreciated the gesture, but we needed to talk about what had happened first. Patricia's face changed immediately. She said she had already apologized and didn't understand why I kept bringing up the past. She claimed she had made honest mistakes while trying to help and felt terrible about the confusion. That's when Patricia said something that made me realize how deep her denial went. She told me that she had been researching elite schools. She discovered that Riverside Academy might not have been right for Alex anyway. She said she had spoken with several parents whose children attended the school, and many were unhappy with the pressure and competitiveness. According to Patricia, Alex might actually be better off in regular school where he could develop normal social skills. I asked her how she had found these parents to talk to. She said she had joined several online groups for families of gifted children. She had been asking questions about different school options. I was horrified. Patricia wasn't just sabotaging Alex's opportunities. She was actively researching ways to justify what she had done. She was trying to convince herself she had helped him. I told her that choosing Alex's educational path wasn't her decision to make. She responded that family decisions should involve the whole family, especially grandparents who cared about a child's well-being. Mike jumped in and said we should all calm down and discuss this rationally. He suggested that maybe Patricia had learned something valuable in her research. Maybe we should at least listen to her concerns. But I was done listening to Patricia's justifications for destroying my son's future. I told her that if she truly cared about Alex, she would have supported his dreams instead of sabotaging them. Patricia started crying and said she only wanted what was best for Alex. She claimed that pushing gifted children too hard often backfired. She was trying to protect him from burnout and social isolation. Alex had been quietly playing with his new tablet during this conversation. When Patricia turned to him and started explaining why regular school might be more fun, Alex looked confused and upset. He asked me quietly if there was something wrong with wanting to go to Riverside Academy. That was my breaking point. I told Alex that absolutely nothing was wrong with his dreams and goals. I took Alex to the bathroom and explained that adults sometimes disagree about what's best for children, but his education and future were ultimately our family's decision to make. When we came back to the table, I told Patricia and Mike that this dinner was over. I said we were leaving. Patricia needed to stop interfering in Alex's educational decisions. Patricia started sobbing and said I was being cruel and unreasonable. She claimed she had spent weeks researching and preparing to help our family. I was rejecting her help out of spite. Mike stayed behind to comfort his mother while Alex and I went home. When Mike came back an hour later, he said Patricia was devastated. She couldn't understand why I was being so hostile. He said his mother genuinely believed she had saved Alex from a potentially harmful situation. Maybe we should consider that she might have a point about the pressures of elite education. I couldn't believe Mike was still defending Patricia's actions. I told him that whether or not Riverside Academy was the right choice, that decision belonged to us as Alex's parents, not to his grandmother. The next morning, I found an email Patricia had sent overnight. It contained links to articles about gifted children who had struggled in competitive academic environments, stories about families who regretted pushing their children too hard, and testimonials from parents who chose regular schools. I forwarded the email to Alex's current teacher and school counselor, asking for their professional opinions. Both responded with concern about Patricia's interference and confirmed that Alex was thriving academically and socially in challenging environments. Mrs. Chen called me that afternoon. She said she was worried about the message Alex might be receiving about his abilities and goals. She had noticed him seeming less confident in class and questioning whether his advanced work was too much. I realized that Patricia's campaign wasn't just about the Riverside Academy application. She was systematically undermining Alex's confidence in his own capabilities. abilities. She was making him doubt whether being gifted was something to be proud of or ashamed of. That weekend, Patricia called and said she wanted to come over to our house to apologize properly. She claimed she had spent the week reflecting on her actions and wanted to make things right with our family. Mike encouraged me to give her another chance, saying it might help heal the rift between us. Against my better judgment, I agreed to let her come over Sunday afternoon. I made it clear that there would be no discussion about Alex's education or future plans, and no gifts or materials brought into our house. Patricia agreed and said she just wanted to spend time with her grandson and repair our relationship. She arrived with flowers for me and a simple board game for Alex that had nothing to do with academics or achievement. For the first hour, everything seemed normal. Patricia apologized for overstepping boundaries and said she understood our concerns. She said she loved Alex and wanted to support whatever path would make him happiest. Then Mike mentioned casually that we were still exploring backup school options, since Alex hadn't gotten into Riverside Academy. Patricia's eyes lit up immediately. She said that was wonderful because she had found several excellent programs that might be even better fits for Alex's personality and learning style. She started describing alternative schools that focused more on creativity and collaboration than competition and testing. I stood up and told Patricia she needed to leave immediately. She started protesting that she was just sharing information, not giving advice. But I could see that she hadn't changed at all. She was still looking for ways to influence Alex's educational path and steer him away from challenging academic environments. As she was leaving, Patricia hugged Alex goodbye and whispered something in his ear. After she left, I asked Alex what his grandmother had said. He looked worried and told me that Patricia had said he should tell us if school ever felt too stressful, because there were lots of other options that might be more fun. That night, I called Mike's brother, Tom, and told him about Patricia's ongoing interference in Alex's education. Tom was shocked to learn what his mother had been doing and said he had no idea she felt that way about academic achievement. Tom revealed something that explained a lot about Patricia's behavior. Apparently, his son Jake had been struggling significantly in school. He had recently been evaluated for learning disabilities. Patricia had been very upset about Jake's difficulties. She had made comments about how unfair it was that some children found school so easy while others struggled. I realized that Patricia's sabotage of Alex wasn't just about wanting the grandchildren to be equals. She was actively trying to protect Jake from feeling inferior by bringing Alex down to his level. The next day, I made a decision that I knew would cause more family conflict, but felt necessary to protect my son. I told Mike that Patricia was no longer welcome in our home or around Alex until she could respect our parenting decisions. Mike said I was being unreasonable, and that his mother was just trying to help in her own way. He accused me of being vindictive and said that cutting off his mother would destroy our family relationships permanently. But I had seen enough evidence of Patricia's deliberate interference and manipulation. She wasn't going to stop trying to undermine Alex's confidence and opportunities as long as she believed she was protecting Jake from comparison. Since that conversation, Mike has been sleeping in the guest room. He says I've put him in an impossible position between his wife and his mother. He doesn't know how to fix the situation, but I refuse to compromise when it comes to protecting my son from someone who has already proven she will sabotage his future out of misguided family loyalty. Update 2. I wish I could say things had gotten better after I banned Patricia from our house, but the situation escalated in ways I never expected. The events of the past few weeks have shown me just how far Patricia was willing to go to control Alex's future. After I cut off contact, Mike continued visiting his mother alone. He would take Alex with him on weekends. He claimed that keeping Alex away from his grandmother would damage their relationship permanently. I reluctantly agreed to supervised visits at Patricia's house, but I started noticing strange changes in Alex's behavior after these visits. He would come home asking questions about whether he was too different from other kids, whether being smart made it harder to have friends. At first, I thought Alex was just processing normal social concerns, but then he started saying specific things that sounded like Patricia's voice rather than his own thoughts. He asked me if kids at regular schools were happier because they didn't have as much pressure to be perfect. He wondered if maybe he should try to be more normal so other kids would like him better. When I asked Alex where these ideas were coming from, he said Grandma Patricia had been showing him videos of kids at different schools. They all looked like they were having more fun than the kids in gifted programs. I realized Patricia was using their visits to systematically convince Alex that his intelligence was a burden rather than a gift. She was making him feel guilty about his abilities and ashamed of his academic interests. I confronted Mike about what his mother was doing during their visits. He claimed Patricia was just trying to help Alex develop a more balanced perspective. When I demanded specific examples of what Patricia was telling Alex, Mike became defensive. He said his mother was sharing wisdom from her years of experience with children, and that maybe Alex did need to hear different viewpoints about his future. That's when I made a decision that changed everything. I started recording Alex's conversations with me after his visits to Patricia's house. I wanted to document exactly what messages he was receiving. The recordings were disturbing. Alex was being taught to hide his intelligence, to pretend he didn't know answers in class. He should avoid challenging academic activities because they might make other children feel bad. Patricia had convinced him that being gifted was selfish, and that truly kind children tried to fit in rather than stand out. She had shown him stories about gifted kids who were bullied and told him this was what happened when children acted too smart. I brought these recordings to our family pediatrician, Dr. Williams, who had been tracking Alex's emotional development since he was small. Dr. Williams was deeply concerned about the psychological manipulation Alex was experiencing. She explained that teaching a child to hide their natural abilities and interests could cause long-term damage to their self-esteem and academic motivation. She recommended immediate intervention to prevent further harm to Alex's developing identity. Armed with Dr. Williams's professional assessment, I confronted Mike with evidence of what his mother was doing to our son. I played him the recordings of Alex questioning whether he should pretend to be less intelligent. Mike was finally forced to hear what I had been trying to tell him. Alex's own words in his own voice revealed the systematic campaign Patricia had been waging. For the first time since this whole situation began, Mike seemed genuinely angry at his mother. He called Patricia immediately and demanded an explanation for what Alex had told us about their conversations. Patricia initially denied saying anything harmful to Alex, but when Mike threatened to cut off all contact unless she told the truth, she broke down and admitted to everything. She confessed that she had been trying to help Alex understand that being different wasn't always good for children. She said she was preparing him for the real world where standing out could make him a target for jealousy and bullying. Patricia claimed she was protecting Alex from the same fate that had befallen other gifted children she had researched online. She had found forums full of stories about academic pressure, social isolation, and mental health problems among high-achieving students. But the most shocking revelation came when Patricia admitted that she had been in contact with Riverside Academy throughout this entire process. She had called the school multiple times, posing as Alex's grandmother, to express concerns about his readiness for their program. She had told the admissions office that our family was having second thoughts about the competitive environment. Alex might be better suited for a less demanding academic setting. She had even suggested they consider other applicants who might be more committed. The admissions director at Riverside Academy had noted these calls in Alex's file as evidence of family uncertainty about the program. Patricia's interference hadn't just caused Alex to miss the application deadline. She had actively damaged his reputation with the school. Mike was devastated by this revelation. He realized that his mother hadn't just made mistakes or acted out of confusion. She had deliberately and systematically sabotaged Alex's educational opportunities while pretending to support our family. We immediately called Riverside Academy to explain what had happened and to clarify that Patricia's calls did not represent our family's position. The admissions director was sympathetic, but explained that the next application cycle wouldn't begin for another 10 months. They suggested we consider their summer enrichment program as a way for Alex to demonstrate his continued interest and ability. While this wasn't the same as full admission, it offered a path forward that Patricia's sabotage hadn't completely destroyed. Meanwhile, Patricia began calling our house multiple times per day, begging for forgiveness and claiming she had only wanted to protect Alex from potential harm. She sent flowers, cards, and gifts, all with messages about how much she loved her grandson. But her apologies rang hollow when we discovered she had also been interfering with Alex's current school experience. She had contacted his teacher, Mrs. Chen, several times to express concerns about Alex being challenged beyond his emotional maturity level. Mrs. Chen had been confused by these calls because Alex was thriving in her classroom and had shown no signs of stress or social difficulty. She had noted Patricia's concerns in Alex's file, but hadn't acted on them because they contradicted her direct observations of his behavior. The pattern was clear. Patricia had been systematically undermining Alex's educational experience at every level, from his current school to his future opportunities, all while maintaining a facade of loving support. The breaking point came when Alex's school counselor called to schedule a meeting. Patricia had contacted the counseling office to request that Alex be evaluated for anxiety and social adjustment issues related to academic pressure. She had provided a detailed list of behaviors she claimed to have observed during family visits, including social withdrawal, perfectionist tendencies, and fear of disappointing adults with his performance. None of these behaviors actually existed. The school counselor had been working with Alex regularly and found him to be confident, socially engaged, and emotionally healthy. But Patricia's false reports had raised red flags that required investigation. I realized that Patricia's interference had reached a level that could potentially damage Alex's academic record permanently. False reports of emotional problems could follow him throughout his educational career and impact his future opportunities. That night, Mike and I made the decision to pursue legal action to prevent Patricia from contacting Alex's schools or interfering with his education in any way. We consulted with a family attorney who specialized in grandparent rights and educational advocacy. The attorney explained that Patricia's actions constituted educational interference and could potentially be classified as a form of child emotional abuse. She helped us draft cease and desist letters to send to Patricia and prepared documentation to protect Alex's academic records from further false reports. The legal intervention had an immediate effect. Patricia stopped calling Alex's school and our house, but she began a campaign of reaching out to other family members, claiming that we were overreacting and preventing her from having a relationship with her grandson. Several relatives called to ask about the family conflict, having heard Patricia's version of events. She had portrayed herself as a concerned grandmother who was being punished for trying to protect Alex from academic pressure. Mike's brother Tom was particularly upset when he learned about the legal action. He accused us of using lawyers to bully an elderly elderly woman, someone who was just trying to help her grandchild. Tom's wife, Lisa, defended Patricia's right to express concerns about Alex's education. The family division became even more painful when Tom revealed that Patricia had been telling everyone that Alex was showing signs of stress and social problems that we were ignoring. She had used her false reports to our school as evidence that she was the only adult advocating for Alex's emotional well-being. But the most disturbing discovery came when we learned that Patricia had been researching how to gain legal custody or guardianship of Alex. She had consulted with an attorney about her rights as a grandmother and had been documenting what she claimed were signs of educational neglect on our part. Patricia's notes included accusations that we were pushing Alex beyond his capabilities, ignoring his emotional needs, and prioritizing academic achievement over his mental health. She had been building a case to potentially challenge our parenting decisions in court. The realization that Patricia saw herself as Alex's protector rather than the source of harm was terrifying. She genuinely believed that we were damaging our son and that her interference was necessary to save him from our misguided ambitions. Mike was finally forced to accept that his mother's behavior was not only harmful, but potentially dangerous to our family's stability. He agreed to complete no contact with Patricia until she underwent professional counseling and could demonstrate genuine understanding of the damage she had caused. Alex, meanwhile, was slowly recovering his confidence with the help of the school counselor and additional support at home. We worked together to rebuild his understanding of his gifts as positive traits rather than sources of shame or burden. But the damage Patricia had caused to our family relationships and Alex's educational trajectory would take years to fully repair. Her campaign of sabotage had stolen not just opportunities, but also precious time from Alex's development and our peace of mind. Update 3. I'm writing this final update because the situation with Patricia has finally reached a resolution, though not the one I had hoped for when this all started. After we implemented no contact with Patricia, I thought the worst was behind us. Instead, I discovered the true scope of her campaign against Alex. 2 weeks after the legal intervention, our attorney called with disturbing news. Patricia had filed a formal complaint with Child Protective Services, alleging that Mike and I were emotionally abusing Alex through excessive academic pressure and social isolation. Her report claimed that Alex showed signs of anxiety, depression, and social withdrawal that we were ignoring in our pursuit of academic achievement. She had provided CPS with detailed documentation of her concerns, including dates and specific incidents she claimed to have witnessed. The CPS investigation was the most terrifying experience of my life. A caseworker came to our home unannounced and interviewed Alex privately. They asked about his home life, school experience, and emotional well-being. Fortunately, Alex was articulate and honest about his feelings. He told the caseworker that he loved learning, enjoyed his advanced classes, and felt supported by his parents. He also mentioned that his grandmother had been trying to convince him to hide his intelligence. The caseworker also interviewed Alex's teachers, school counselor, and pediatrician. Every professional who worked with Alex contradicted Patricia's allegations. They confirmed that he was a well-adjusted, confident child who thrived in challenging academic environments. Dr. Williams provided CPS with documentation of Alex's emotional development over the years, showing consistent patterns of healthy self-esteem and social engagement. She also submitted her concerns about the psychological manipulation Alex had experienced during visits with Patricia. After a thorough investigation, CPS determined that Patricia's allegations were unfounded and potentially malicious. The caseworker noted in her report that Alex showed no signs of academic pressure or emotional distress related to his gifted education. However, the investigation revealed something unexpected. During their interviews with extended family members, CPS discovered something disturbing. Patricia had been making similar allegations about other family members for years. Tom's wife, Lisa, eventually admitted that Patricia had previously called CPS on them when Jake was struggling academically. Patricia had claimed that Tom and Lisa were neglecting Jake's learning disabilities and failing to provide appropriate support. Even Mike's sister, Rachel, revealed that Patricia had interfered in her daughter's college applications. She had expressed concerns to university admissions offices about the family's financial stability and emotional support systems. The pattern was clear. Patricia had a long history of using official channels to control and manipulate her family members' major life decisions. Her interference with Alex was just the latest in a decades-long campaign of boundary violations. Armed with this information, our attorney helped us obtain a restraining order preventing Patricia from contacting Alex's schools, healthcare providers, or any official agencies on his behalf. The order also prohibited her from initiating any legal proceedings related to Alex's welfare. But Patricia's response to the restraining order was to escalate her campaign further. She began posting on social media about being a victim of parental alienation and grandparent discrimination. She created a blog called Fighting for My Grandson, where she detailed her version of events. In her online posts, Patricia portrayed herself as a concerned grandmother who had discovered serious problems with Alex's upbringing. She was being silenced for trying to protect him. She included photos of Alex and detailed information about his academic achievements and struggles. The blog gained attention from grandparents' rights activists and educational reform advocates. Patricia was invited to speak at conferences and participate in online forums about parental overreach and academic pressure on gifted children. Reading Patricia's public statements was surreal. She had created an entirely fictional fictional narrative where Alex was a victim of pushy parents. She was his only advocate. She presented her sabotage of his opportunities as heroic intervention rather than destructive interference. The most painful part was seeing how Patricia used Alex's image and story to build her own platform. She was exploiting our son's private struggles and achievements to gain sympathy and support for her cause. Our attorney sent cease and desist letters demanding that Patricia remove all content about Alex from her blog and social media accounts. She complied legally, but continued speaking publicly about grandparent rights and educational advocacy without using Alex's name or image. Meanwhile, Alex was struggling with the knowledge that his grandmother had tried to have him removed from our care. Even though he understood that Patricia's allegations were false, the idea that someone who claimed to love him had tried to destroy his family was traumatic. We arranged for Alex to work with a child psychologist who specialized in family trauma and gifted children. Through therapy, Alex was able to process the betrayal and manipulation he had experienced and develop strategies for protecting his emotional well-being. The therapist also helped Alex understand that Patricia's behavior was about her own psychological issues, rather than any failure on his part. This was crucial for preventing long-term damage to Alex's self-esteem and trust in family relationships. Mike struggled even more than Alex with accepting the reality of his mother's behavior. The discovery that Patricia had been interfering in other family members' lives for years forced him to re-examine his entire childhood and family dynamics. In therapy, Mike revealed that Patricia had always been controlling and manipulative, but he had normalized her behavior as loving concern. He realized that her interference in our family was part of a lifelong pattern of boundary violations and emotional manipulation. The family therapy sessions were difficult, but necessary for healing our relationship and protecting Alex from future manipulation. We developed strategies for recognizing and responding to manipulative behavior and established clear boundaries for all family interactions. Patricia made several attempts to re-establish contact through other family members, sending messages about how much she missed Alex, how sorry she was for the misunderstanding. But her apologies always included justifications for her actions and requests for information about Alex's current activities. Tom initially pressured us to reconcile with Patricia, claiming that family unity was more important than past conflicts. But after learning about her history of interference and the CPS investigation, he finally understood the seriousness of her behavior. Jake, Tom's son, actually benefited from the revelations about Patricia's manipulations. With proper evaluation and support, he was diagnosed with a specific learning disability. He began receiving appropriate educational accommodations. Tom realized that Patricia's shame about Jake's struggles had prevented the family from getting him the help he needed. 6 months after implementing no contact, Alex was accepted into Riverside Academy's summer enrichment program. His performance in the program was outstanding, and he was invited to apply for fall admission the following year. Alex's confidence had returned stronger than before. He understood that his intelligence was a gift to be developed rather than hidden. He had learned to recognize and reject attempts to make him feel ashamed of his abilities. The experience taught our entire family valuable lessons about protecting children from adult manipulation and the importance of maintaining clear boundaries with toxic family members. A year later, Alex was thriving at Riverside Academy. He had formed close friendships with other gifted students and was pursuing advanced studies in mathematics and science. The social isolation Patricia had predicted never materialized. Patricia continues her advocacy work and occasionally appears in media stories about grandparent rights. She has never acknowledged the harm she caused to Alex or taken responsibility for her manipulative behavior. Recently, Tom told us that Patricia had begun expressing concerns about Jake's new educational accommodations. She claimed that labels like learning disabled could damage his self-esteem. The family is now watching carefully for signs that she might begin interfering in Jake's support services. The whole experience taught me that protecting your children sometimes requires making difficult choices that others won't understand. I'm sure Patricia still tells her version of this story where I'm the villain who prevented her from saving Alex. But Alex is safe, thriving, and surrounded by people who support his gifts rather than trying to diminish them. Sometimes being seen as unreasonable is the price of being a good parent. Looking back, I don't regret any of the difficult decisions we made to protect Alex from Patricia's manipulation. The temporary pain of family conflict was worth preserving my son's confidence, opportunities, and emotional well-being. Alex recently told me that he wants to become a teacher so he can help other gifted children believe in themselves and pursue their dreams. Patricia's attempts to diminish his light only made it shine brighter in the end.